Step into the rustic, demanding world of medieval England, a time ruled by the seasons and the Lord's will. For a peasant woman, life was a continuous cycle of labor, family, and survival, deeply intertwined with the land. This is her story, from her humble birth in a wattle and daub hut to her final rest in the village soil. If you like what I do, please like and subscribe. Now put on your headphones, pull up the blanket, take a deep breath, and relax. Your first cries filled the small, smoky confines of a one-room hut, its walls crafted from mud and wattle, its roof thatched with straw. This was your birthplace in a humble village, a place inextricably bound to the land and its lord. The air inside was thick with the scent of wood smoke from the central hearth, damp earth, and the faint presence of livestock, who might share a corner of the dwelling for warmth. Your birth was attended by local women, perhaps a midwife or experienced village elders, their hands rough but comforting. The hut was modest, offering little privacy, yet it was the heart of your family's existence, a shelter from the elements and a place of communal living. Life here was dictated by the harsh realities of the agricultural year, where every hand was needed for survival. You were born into a world of physical labor, where the sun, rain, and soil shaped every aspect of daily life. The sounds of the village would be your first lullabies, distant animal calls, the murmur of voices, the occasional creak of a cartwheel. Your early days were a simple existence, focused on warmth, nourishment, and the immediate needs of a newborn in a demanding environment. This humble beginning marked your entry into the vast, interconnected web of peasant life, where community and cooperation were vital. Your very existence was tied to the rhythm of the land, a cycle that would define your journey from cradle to grave. Your infancy was brief, a rapid transition from helplessness to early contribution. Within days of your birth, you were given a name, a practical, common one like Agnes, Emma, or Alice. The naming was likely a quiet family affair, perhaps a simple blessing from the village priest, with little ceremony beyond familial recognition. Your name wasn't chosen for uniqueness, but for its familiarity and utility. It was a name that would serve you in the fields, at the market, and within the village community. Your early days were swaddled, then crawling on the dirt floor of the hut, observing the constant activity of your family. You learned early that resources were precious. Food was simple, often pottage or coarse bread, and clothing was mended until it could be mended no more. Physical affection would be present, but survival was paramount. Crying was a natural instinct, but often quickly quieted to avoid drawing attention or disturbing busy adults. You learned to distinguish family members by their voices and their scents, the familiar presence of your mother, father, and older siblings. The sounds and smells of the hut became your world, the crackle of the fire, the distant bleating of sheep, and the rich, earthy scent of the dwelling. This early naming and immersion into family life immediately positioned you as a member of a unit, a vital component of the household's labor force. Your individuality was less important than your contribution to the collective survival, a principle that would govern your life in medieval England. Childhood, as understood today, was a luxury peasant life couldn't afford. From a very young age,
roughly 4 to 7, you began your life as a contributing member of the household. Your first tasks were simple but essential: fetching water from the village well or stream, carrying small pails that grew heavier with each passing year. You'd be sent to gather firewood from the nearby woods, searching for fallen branches and twigs, learning to navigate the familiar paths. One of your most common duties was tending to younger siblings, acting as a little mother or nursemaid, watching over infants while older family members worked. You learned to sweep the dirt floor of the hut, to collect stray bits of straw, and to keep the small living space as tidy as possible. These chores were not punishments, but expected contributions, part of the daily rhythm of survival for every member of the family. You observed the adults constantly, mimicking their movements, internalizing the routines of a peasant household. This early immersion taught you responsibility, diligence, and the direct correlation between effort and survival. Playtime would be simple, spontaneous moments in between duties, chasing chickens, rolling hoops, or playing with crude dolls made from rags or wood. These formative years instilled in you a deep understanding of your place in the household, where every hand, no matter how small, played a vital role in sustaining the family.
As you grew, your education became more specialized, focused on the indispensable domestic skills that defined a woman's role in the medieval peasant household. Your primary teachers were your mother and older women in the family or village who passed down generations of practical knowledge. You learned the arduous process of grinding grain by hand, using quern stones to turn kernels into coarse flour for bread. Baking bread was a daily ritual, transforming that flour into the family's staple food, kneaded by hand and baked in a communal oven or over the hearth. Spinning wool was a constant task. You learned to work the distaff and spindle, twisting raw wool into thread, a monotonous but crucial activity for clothing. You were taught to mend clothes with practiced efficiency, patching worn linen and wool garments to extend their meager lifespan. Preparing simple meals over the open hearth became second nature, utilizing seasonal vegetables, root crops, and occasional meat or fish. You learned about food preservation, drying herbs, salting meat, and storing root vegetables for the lean winter months. Hygiene, though rudimentary, was also part of your education. Keeping the hut as clean as possible, boiling water, and managing waste. These skills were not just chores, they were the very foundation of household survival, making you an indispensable part of the family's ability to sustain itself. As you approached your 8th year and beyond, your contribution to the family's labor extended beyond the hut. You began to join the family in the fields, particularly during peak agricultural seasons. The rhythm of the land now became your rhythm. During harvest season, you'd participate in gleaning, walking behind the reapers, picking up stray ears of grain that had been missed, a vital supplement to the family's meager stores. You spent long, back-breaking hours weeding the crops, bent over in the sun, ensuring that precious nutrients went to the edible plants, not the wild ones. During planting season, you'd assist with sowing seeds, often scattering them by hand under the watchful eye of your father or older brothers. Your strength increased with each passing year, and you learned to endure the long days, the unpredictable weather, and the sheer monotony of agricultural labor. You learned to distinguish different crops, to identify pests,
and to understand the proper way to handle tools like sickles or hoes. Though men typically handled the heavy plowing, women and children were crucial for all other aspects of fieldwork, from sowing to threshing. The bond with the land deepened as you directly participated in coaxing sustenance from the earth, understanding the precariousness of each harvest. This direct involvement in fieldwork solidified your role as a vital contributor to the family's food supply, reinforcing the collective effort required for survival. Your hands, once small and soft, became calloused and strong, shaped by the demanding touch of the earth and the tireless labor of the fields.
Your education was entirely experiential, rooted in the demands of your daily life. You learned through observation and doing, rather than through books or formal schooling. You were almost certainly illiterate, as reading and writing were skills reserved for the clergy, nobility, and a very small number of merchants or scribes. Instead, you gained extensive knowledge of farming, the cycles of planting and harvesting, the properties of different soils, and the signs of changing weather. You became a skilled practitioner of herbal medicine, learning from older women which plants could cure ailments, soothe pain, or act as abortifacients, a vital skill in a world without doctors. Your understanding of animal care was practical and deep, knowing when a cow was sick, how to help a ewe lamb, or how to keep chickens healthy. You absorbed a vast body of oral tradition, folk tales, village gossip, local histories, and the unwritten rules of community interaction passed down through generations. You learned basic arithmetic for bartering at market, understanding simple sums and measurements essential for trade. Your senses were sharpened, a keen eye for ripeness, a trained ear for the sounds of animals in distress, a nose for spoilage. This practical education equipped you with all the necessary skills for survival and management of a peasant household, making you resilient and resourceful. Though unlettered, your mind was a rich tapestry of practical knowledge, accumulated wisdom, and the vibrant oral culture of your village.
The arrival of your first menstruation was a significant, if quiet, milestone in your life. It signaled your physical readiness for marriage and your capacity to bear children. This typically occurred relatively early, often around 12 to 14 years of age, though it varied based on diet and physical development. While you were physically capable of marriage, actual marriage for peasant women usually occurred slightly later, often in your late teens or early 20s. There were no grand public celebrations for this event, but it was noted within the female sphere of your family and close community. This biological change marked your transition from girl to young woman, preparing you for the most fundamental role expected of you: procreation for your family and the village. You would have learned from your mother or other women about menstruation, its practicalities, and its significance for fertility. The ability to bear children was paramount, as a large family meant more hands for labor and security in old age. This period might be accompanied by subtle shifts in how you were viewed, with discussions about your potential suitors or future prospects beginning to arise. The expectation of marriage and motherhood would become a central focus of your future, shaping your aspirations and daily activities. Your body, once solely a tool for labor, now held the profound potential for new life, linking you to the endless cycle of generations on the land. Courtship in medieval peasant life was a far cry from romantic ideals. It was limited and heavily supervised, often driven by practicality and family needs. Your potential husband would likely be a man from your own village or a nearby one,
known to your family and sharing a similar social standing. Any interactions would occur under the watchful eyes of family and community. There was little opportunity for private meetings or grand declarations of affection. A simple gift, perhaps a ribbon, a small carved item, or a modest piece of jewelry might be exchanged as a sign of interest, a practical gesture rather than a romantic one. A few shared words at the communal well, during a village feast, or while working in the fields might be the extent of your personal courtship. The families of both parties would negotiate the terms of the marriage, focusing on land, resources, and labor contributions. Your own feelings, while perhaps considered, would be secondary to the economic and social benefits of the match for your family. You might have a say in refusing a suitor, especially if you had a strong personality or other options, but outright defiance was rare and often led to social ostracization. The purpose was to secure a stable partnership, ensuring the continuation of families and the efficient running of households and farms. This pragmatic approach to courtship underscored the collective nature of peasant life, where personal desires often bowed to the imperatives of survival and community stability.
The day of your marriage was a significant event, a transition from your family's care to establishing your own household. You would marry a man from your village or a nearby one, sealing an alliance of families. Your family would provide a small dowry, a contribution of goods or money to the new household. This was not about personal wealth, but a practical transfer of resources. The dowry might consist of a few livestock, some household utensils, tools, a small amount of silver, or even linen you had spun and woven yourself. This small but significant contribution symbolized your family's investment in your new life and your husband's family's acceptance of you. The wedding ceremony itself would be relatively simple, often conducted by the village priest, followed by a local feast and celebration, sometimes lasting a day or two. It was a community affair, marking the joining of two families and the potential for new life and labor for the village. You would typically marry in your late teens or early 20s, balancing physical maturity with the need to acquire sufficient resources. Your new role would be that of a wife, with distinct responsibilities for household management and childbearing, a partner in the arduous task of farming. The act of marriage was fundamentally about continuity, ensuring new generations for the manor and new hands for the land. This step marked the beginning of your adult life, a partnership forged out of necessity and mutual benefit, laying the foundation for your own independent household.
Upon marriage, a profound shift occurred. You moved into your husband's hut, or a new one you constructed together, and for the first time, you took on the full responsibility of running your own independent household. This was your domain. You were now the mistress of your own small dwelling, responsible for its cleanliness, its supplies, and its warmth. All the domestic skills learned since childhood, grinding grain, baking bread, tending the fire, mending clothes, were now applied directly to your own family's survival. You managed the family's meager food stores, ensuring enough was put aside for the long winter months, often rationing carefully. This new independence brought immense responsibility. The comfort and well-being of your husband and future children depended on your diligence. You collaborated with your husband, his work in the fields complementing your work in the home, forming a unified economic unit. You might also have a small garden patch around your hut, growing herbs and vegetables to supplement the family's diet, a small source of personal pride. This transition meant a new level of engagement with the village community, as you now exchanged goods, gossip, and mutual aid with other wives.
The hut, once a simple dwelling, became your central focus, a place where you would nurture life, share meals, and build your family's future. Establishing your own household was the ultimate proof of your readiness for adulthood, a testament to your hard-earned skills and your crucial role in the cycle of peasant life. Once married, your life often entered a relentless cycle of near-constant pregnancy and childbirth, a fundamental and often perilous aspect of a peasant woman's existence. Childbearing began early and continued frequently, driven by the dual needs for labor on the farm and security in old age, as few children survived. You would experience the physical strain of repeated pregnancies, often returning to strenuous labor in the fields just weeks after giving birth. Childbirth itself was incredibly dangerous, a leading cause of death for women in medieval times, with little medical intervention available. The joy of a healthy birth was often tempered by the harsh reality of high infant mortality rates. Many of your babies would not survive their first year, succumbing to illness or malnutrition. An imaginative event. You quietly lit a small candle in the corner of your hut, its flickering flame a silent vigil for a child lost to fever. Your heart felt heavy with grief, but a deep resignation to God's will and the harsh realities of life on the manor kept you from despairing openly. There was always more work to be done, more life to live. You nursed your babies, often for extended periods, as it was the safest source of nutrition. The continuous cycle of pregnancy, birth, and loss shaped your emotional landscape, fostering a deep resilience and a quiet acceptance of fate. Each surviving child was a blessing, a future hand for the plow, and a source of hope amidst the hardships of life. These were the years when your body was most directly engaged in the perpetuation of your family line, a vital, if physically taxing, contribution to the village and the manor. Even as you managed the household and bore children, your role as an agricultural laborer remained vital and continuous, a shared burden with the men of your family. You were indispensable during sowing season, scattering seeds by hand, following the plow to ensure a good crop. At harvest time, you joined the arduous work of reaping, using a sickle to cut down stalks of grain or gathering the harvested stalks. Your hands were skilled at binding sheaves, bundling the cut grain into manageable units for transport from the fields. Later, during the winter months, you participated in threshing grain, beating the harvested stalks with flails to separate the kernels from the chaff, often in the communal barn. You also assisted with haymaking, gathering fodder for the animals, and tending to the various garden plots around the village. The work was physically demanding, often under harsh weather conditions, from the baking summer sun to the biting winter winds. Your contribution to the fields was directly tied to the family's survival, ensuring enough food was grown to pay rents and feed yourselves. This constant labor connected you deeply to the cycles of nature, to the soil, and to the very sustenance that kept your family alive. Your role as an agricultural laborer was as fundamental as a man's, highlighting the collaborative and interdependent nature of peasant life.
Beyond the fields, you were the primary caretaker for the family's smaller livestock, crucial for their daily sustenance. You were the main hand in animal husbandry and dairy production. You tended to the family's small flock of chickens, gathering their eggs daily, a valuable source of protein and a tradable commodity. Geese might roam your yard, providing eggs, meat, and feathers for pillows and bedding, all managed under your watchful eye. If fortunate, your family might own a pig or two, which you would feed with kitchen scraps and gleanings, raising them for their crucial meat supply. You were responsible for milking any cows or goats the family owned, a regular chore that provided fresh milk for drinking and the essential raw material for cheese and butter. You learned to churn butter and make cheese, skills vital for preserving dairy products, especially during times of plenty for later consumption or sale. The health and productivity of these animals directly impacted your family's diet and their ability to acquire other necessities through barter or limited sale. You learned to recognize signs of illness in animals, to provide basic care, and to protect them from predators or thieves. This direct connection to the animals provided a constant source of daily work, but also a vital supply of food and small income. Your skill in animal husbandry ensured that your family had a continuous supply of vital resources, demonstrating your multifaceted contribution to household survival.
Inside the hut during the long winter nights, or in moments of respite from field work, your hands were rarely still. You spent countless hours spinning wool into thread and weaving it into cloth. This was a continuous, rhythmic task, often done using a distaff and spindle, or later a simple spinning wheel, transforming raw, greasy wool into usable yarn. The thread you spun would then be used on a loom, either a vertical warp-weighted loom or a simple horizontal one, to weave cloth for the family's entire wardrobe. Every tunic, every pair of breeches, every blanket, every piece of bedding was crafted by the hands of women like you, a testament to their tireless labor. You learned to prepare the wool, washing, carding, and teasing it to make it ready for spinning, removing impurities. Dyeing the wool or finished cloth using natural dyes from plants or minerals might also fall to you, adding color to the otherwise drab garments. This work was slow and meticulous, often done in the dim light of the hearth, requiring patience and practiced skill. The quality of your spinning and weaving directly impacted the comfort and durability of your family's clothing, protecting them from the harsh elements. This domestic craft was not just about making clothes. It was about self-sufficiency, ensuring your family didn't have to buy expensive cloth from outside the village. Your spinning and weaving represented a constant, quiet hum of productivity in the peasant home, symbolizing the ingenuity and resilience of medieval women.
A vital and often daily task in the peasant household was the brewing of ale, not just for enjoyment, but as a fundamental and safer source of hydration than water. As a woman, you were often primarily responsible for brewing ale for the family's consumption, a tradition that stretched back centuries. You would gather the ingredients, barley malt, water, and perhaps a few hops or other bittering herbs if available. The process involved mashing the malt, boiling the wort, fermenting it with yeast, and then straining the resulting ale, a physically demanding process. An imaginative event. You carefully added a handful of pungent, wild-gathered herbs, perhaps mugwort or yarrow, to your brewing vat. You hoped for a particularly potent batch that would not only quench thirst, but perhaps fetch a small profit if you could sell the surplus at the local market, a rare chance for limited independence and a small personal income. Ale was consumed by everyone, including children, as its fermentation made it safer than often contaminated well or river water. The strength of the ale varied, with small ale being a daily staple, and stronger brews reserved for special occasions or sale. If you were particularly skilled, your ale might gain a reputation, allowing you to sell small quantities to neighbors or villagers, potentially contributing a valuable, albeit small, income to the household. This brewing skill was essential, ensuring your family had a continuous, safe, and nutritious beverage throughout the year. Your ability to brew good ale was a source of quiet pride, a testament to your domestic competence and your crucial role in the household's well-being.
While most of your life centered on the farm and hut, if your village was large enough or close to a town, you might have the rare opportunity to man a market stall, a brief taste of independence. This was a chance to sell any surplus goods your household produced. Extra eggs from your chickens, fresh or churned butter, or perhaps a particularly good batch of ale you had brewed. Attending the market was a sensory overload. The clamor of voices, the smell of various goods, the sight of people from different villages, and even a few townsfolk. This was more than just commerce. It was a rare chance for limited independence and significant social interaction beyond your immediate family and neighbors. You would haggle over prices, learn the value of your goods, and gain a sense of the wider world beyond your manor fields. You would exchange gossip, learn news from other areas, and perhaps even meet people from different social strata. The small income earned from these sales would be precious, allowing your family to purchase essential goods they couldn't produce themselves, like salt, iron tools, or perhaps a rare luxury. This public role was a brief departure from your private domestic life, allowing you to engage directly with the economic pulse of the region. Your success at the market directly contributed to your family's prosperity, showcasing your acumen beyond mere physical labor. Manning a market stall was a testament to the ingenuity and resourcefulness of peasant women, carving out small spheres of influence and economic contribution in a demanding world.
Life on the land meant you constantly lived with the specter of hunger. You endured frequent periods of hardship, poor harvests, and the terrifying reality of famine. A cold spring, a prolonged drought, or excessive rains could devastate crops, leading to a catastrophic lack of food for the entire village. You learned to make do with meager provisions, stretching every last bit of grain, making pottage thinner and reducing portions drastically. During famine, you would be forced to forage for wild food, edible roots, berries, nettles, and even bark, desperately searching for anything to stem the gnawing hunger. Disease often followed famine, weakening bodies and making them susceptible to illness, leading to widespread sickness and death in the village. You witnessed the suffering of your neighbors, the gaunt faces, the desperate pleas, and the heartbreaking loss of life, particularly among the young and the old. These periods of scarcity reinforced the precariousness of life, the absolute reliance on the land, and the vulnerability to natural forces. Your ingenuity in making ends meet, in finding overlooked scraps, and in preserving what little food you had became a desperate art of survival. The memory of hunger was a powerful one, shaping your approach to resources, ensuring that nothing was ever wasted and everything was preserved for tomorrow. Facing scarcity and famine was a harsh, undeniable reality of peasant life, testing your resilience, your faith, and your fundamental will to survive against overwhelming odds.
If you were fortunate enough to reach old age, your role in the household would shift. Your intense physical labor lessened, but your wisdom and experience became highly valued. You became the keeper of household management lore, sharing your knowledge of how to stretch meager resources, preserve food, and mend worn goods. Your understanding of healing herbs and traditional remedies, accumulated over a lifetime of practical application, made you a respected figure in the village, a go-to for minor ailments. You were also a living repository of village lore and family history, your memory holding tales of past harvests, old feuds, local events, and the lives of ancestors. An imaginative event. By the flickering hearth light on a long winter night, you would gather your grandchildren close, their eyes wide with wonder, as you told them ancient folk tales and riddles. Subtly, you would weave in lessons of survival, the importance of community, and the values passed down through generations, ensuring the continuity of their heritage. Your presence brought comfort and continuity to the household, a constant guiding presence for the younger generations. You might help with light chores, spinning wool, mending, or minding younger children, but your primary contribution was now intellectual and familial. You offered advice to your children and their spouses, guiding them through the challenges of farming, child-rearing, and dealing with the manor lord. As an elder, you commanded respect, your years of endurance and wisdom a testament to a life well lived in a harsh world. Your role as a grandmother and an elder was a profound final chapter, a quiet but powerful contribution to the enduring cycle of family and community life.
A common, yet life-altering experience for many women was widowhood. If your husband died before you, it presented a complex mix of grief, vulnerability, and surprising potential for autonomy. The immediate aftermath was one of grief and economic vulnerability. Without your husband's labor, managing the land and paying rents became a daunting challenge. However, for a peasant woman, widowhood often granted a degree of unusual autonomy. You now held direct control over your land, if you had the rights to it, and your household. You were responsible for managing the farm, overseeing the labor of any children, and making all economic decisions, a freedom rarely experienced by married women. The manor lord might try to force you to remarry to ensure the land continued to be worked, but you might have the right to refuse, especially if you could manage on your own or had adult children. You could make decisions about your children's marriages, your own inheritance, and your daily life without a husband's direct authority. Many widows fiercely guarded their independence, preferring to manage their own affairs rather than fall under the control of a new husband. This newfound autonomy, while often coupled with economic hardship, allowed some women a rare taste of self-determination in a patriarchal society. Your resilience, honed by a lifetime of hardship, would be put to the ultimate test as you navigated this new, independent, yet precarious phase of your life. Widowhood, though born of loss, could, paradoxically, be a period of significant personal agency for a medieval peasant woman, allowing her to shape her own destiny in ways previously unimaginable.
Your long, arduous life, deeply intertwined with the land and its cycles, would eventually draw to a close. You would die, most likely from old age, illness, or complications from one of your many childbirths. Your passing would be marked by the quiet mourning of your family and the close-knit village community. Your life, though humble, was a vital thread in their tapestry. Your body would be prepared simply, perhaps washed and wrapped in a shroud, then carried to the local village churchyard. Here, amidst the graves of generations of your ancestors and fellow villagers, you would be buried, returned to the very soil that had sustained you throughout your life. Your grave might be marked by a simple wooden cross or an unmarked mound, a silent testament to your quiet contribution. Your life, from birth to demise, was a quiet, relentless act of contribution to the cycle of the land, of family, and of community. You were a provider, a nurturer, a laborer, and a source of wisdom, your existence mirroring the steady rhythm of the seasons. Your memory would live on in the stories told by the hearth, in the hands that continued to spin and weave, and in the children you had brought into the world. The earth which had given you life and livelihood now embraced you in your final rest, a fitting end to a life lived in profound connection to the land. Your demise marked the completion of your journey, your quiet contribution to the unending cycle of life, death, and renewal in medieval England.
Your saga, a testament to resilience and unwavering spirit, now quietly concludes. From the smoke-filled hut of your birth to your final resting place in the churchyard soil, you embodied the enduring strength of the medieval peasant woman. Your life, a continuous thread woven into the fabric of the land, ensured the continuity of family, community, and the very rhythms of existence. Remember, even in the quiet of the present, the echo of your steadfast life resonates. Now, relax and enjoy the silence, for your journey is complete.